Hey there, my name's Ash. I'm currently backpacking Europe and I just spent a little bit of time in Turkey, roughly about 3 weeks, and it was the most amazing time ever. So I'm going to talk a few things about currency, language, budgeting, travel tips, and also give you like a 2-week itinerary so you can get an idea of how much time you could spend in sort of each place, and then you can obviously adjust it to your needs and the things you're looking for and how you want to spend time in Turkey. Let's start off with the most basic one, which is language. For the most part they speak Turkish, pretty much everywhere they speak Turkish, but they also do speak a lot of English, and their English is actually pretty good. Keep in mind though, a lot of people may think that you already know how to speak Turkish, so they may initially come into the conversation speaking Turkish. You can just say, oh sorry, do you speak English, and see if they know how to converse with you in English. Otherwise you can pull up Google Translate and the words translate beautifully. It's not like some other places where the words are kind of lost in translation. I was able to have an incredible conversation with my taxi driver over Google Translate and everything made sense. It wasn't like throwing in like the word onion or something there, like it actually made sense. So highly recommend that. Download the Turkish Google Translate language, because then you can have it offline and use Turkish whenever you need. Currency is Turkish lira. You will need cash on you. Some places do accept card, like restaurants, shops, a few other places do actually accept card, which is pretty nice. There are some days I got away with spending only 700 Turkish lira, which is about 40 Australian dollars. So that's an incredible backpacking budget, and that was including my accommodation, my meals, my SIM card, and entertainment. If you cook your own meals, you're going to save so much money. I found for the most part on average meals were around about the 10 Australian dollar mark, so still pretty affordable, but it does add up because that's instantly $30 in a day for 3 meals out. To give you an idea on budget, let's go over some of the main costs. First of all was visa. I paid 90 Australian dollars, which gives me 90 days in a 180-day period. This varies for each country. I know New Zealanders get to go free, and I think most Europeans also get to enter Turkey free, which is a blessing. That's fantastic. But have a look for your own country and you'll get an idea of how much you need to put aside for your visa. Eating a meal out is going to cost you around 150 to 350 lira. This is usually just an average sort of restaurant. The food in these average restaurants, and I don't mean that in a negative way, they are fantastic. This is where the people know to cook. I'm going to cook you local goodies. It's delicious, it's fresh, it's the best food you can get. So 150 to 350 lira is pretty bang on. Yeah, it's around about the $10 mark, give or take. Hostels will set you back anywhere from 400 to 800 lira a night. Obviously if you get breakfast included, pools, views, you're going to be looking more at the 800, maybe even up to 1,000 lira range. But sometimes it's nice to splurge, and sometimes it's just the better hostel in the area. I will get to that later. But yeah, 400 lira for a night for a night for a room is still fantastic. Museum entries on average are about 150 lira, though there was one time I spent 750 lira for a palace, and yeah, it wasn't the greatest, but it's still good to see, and I guess it's a one-time experience. Groceries are fantastic in Turkey. It is so cheap to eat. I was eating on 120 lira for a couple of days, so 60 lira a day, which was like next to nothing. So you can save a lot of money if you cook for yourself. Just look for your accommodation. As long as it has a kitchen, then you can cook for yourself. Unless you're traveling with cooking gear, though most people aren't. So check out accommodation that has kitchen. Traveling between cities is going to set you back maybe 600 to 800 lira for roughly like a 12-hour bus ride. It's very affordable to get around, and yeah, it's kind of one of the better ways. If you want to get around quicker, you can use planes. Like going between Istanbul and Cappadocia, it's a long bus ride, it's 12 hours, and I think that one was about 800 lira for me, but you can get a flight for maybe like 100 something dollars. But if you book it early, you can save yourself a lot of time and a lot of money. So in terms of a rough budget, you're looking at about 45 Australian dollars a day if you're making your own meals, and about $70 a day if you're eating out. Okay, so let's dive into some of the travel tips that I have for visiting Turkey. Like I said in the last point, stay in accommodation with kitchens. It's going to save you a lot of money, and it gives you the chance to cook something that you want. So you'll save a lot of money, and yeah, it's great. You can cook whatever you want. Second point, surprisingly enough, the local cuisine isn't all that cheap. Usually when you go to a country, their local cuisine is cheap, and then anything outside that country, like say if you're in Thailand and you want maybe American fast food, or you want Indian food, or wherever else in the world it might be, it's going to cost you a bit more. I was kind of surprised to see that sometimes the, like say, Italian food or the American food is the same price as Turkish food. I usually would expect the Turkish food to be cheaper, but that's not the case here, so just keep an eye out for that. My third point, unfortunately, men stare at women, and it can be pretty uncomfortable. The worst experience I had was in Istanbul, and I found this was just the worst in general. Not saying that I disliked Istanbul. Istanbul was amazing, but just be aware if you are a solo female traveller, or just a female in general, the men will stare at you like you're a piece of meat, which really sucks. Just keep it in mind for when you're walking around the street any time of the day. Try not to go out too late at night, especially like in Istanbul or Izmir. The bigger cities tend to be the problem sort of areas. However, that leads me to my next point. I did feel safe the entire time that I was here. I did genuinely feel safe, even though there was men staring. You just don't pay them any attention, and you just mind your own business, keep focused on where you're going, and just do your own thing, and usually they don't really try and call out to you. Next up is to have an idea on the route that you want to do while in Turkey. For the most part, it's kind of like a loop around the country, so you can go clockwise or anti-clockwise. I'm probably doing that wrong, but yeah, you kind of do like a big circle, and you can decide sort of where you fly out from. So that can kind of lead me to my next points when I start talking about the route that I took and what I recommend in terms of days and times and how long you should spend in the place. So we'll go into that a little bit later. The exchange rate here is also really good. I mean, you do get a lot of lira for what your money's worth, but one thing you have to keep in mind is that they will constantly bump up the prices in like restaurants, so it kind of balances itself out anyway. Like, just because it looks like it's going to be a really cheap country or whatever, they do adjust the prices and make them and raise them up. So like one day I was in a restaurant, and then the next day I went back and something was 30 or 40 lira more. So the prices are moving quickly, and you'll also notice that on a lot of the menus they have it so that they can change it quickly. I think that might also adjust with season, because I travelled in the high season, and I feel like in low season they may drop it down a little bit. My favourite app for travelling Europe and for finding lower ATM fees or no ATM fees is the ATM Fee Saver app. This is an absolute gem. It means you can find ATMs and you don't have to get ripped with stupid bank fees. Highly recommend downloading it. It's great for so many countries in the world. It doesn't have all the countries in the world, but it does have a really fair amount, so you will save yourself a lot of money on excessive bank fees. And for my last point, finding hostels. For the most part, I couldn't seem to work Agoda or Booking.com. It was really hard to find rooms or hostels and dorms via those websites and apps, and I heard that a few other people had that issue too. So get Hostel World. You can find some of the cheapest accommodation on Hostel World, and it's definitely great for solo backpackers, solo travellers. Definitely look out for kitchens included or breakfast included. This will save you a bit of money in the long run. Okay, now we're going to get on to the route, and something you might want to consider is like where you want to go. So I'm going to tell you all the popular spots that I recommend and some of the places that I stayed at, including some hostels and some activities you can do in these towns. So it'll give you a good idea of all of the above. Don't get me wrong, I did spend 3 weeks there, so I had to adjust a little bit, but this is what I would do if I only had 2 weeks to spend in Turkey. So first up, for the most part, you're probably going to fly into Istanbul. It's not the capital city, but it's the main city where a lot of the international flights operate from. So I would recommend 2 nights in Istanbul. It'll give you enough time to see around the city and get a feel for it, and do some exploring. The hostel I recommend is Lola's Backpackers. It is a great little spot. It's got a kitchen. It's got some really cute kittens at the moment, so maybe by the time you've seen this they've grown up, but they were adorable. The owner's fantastic, and I really loved the hostel. I felt really safe, and it was very well looked after. I highly recommend it. Some of the activities you can do include the Blue Mosque, Fatih Mosque, the Galata Kulesi, which is this massive, almost like castle-like tower. It's so stunning. The Grand Bazaar, Hagia Sophia, and the Archaeological Museum I've heard is amazing, though I didn't get a chance to go. I also highly recommend using public transport to get around. The public transport system is fantastic, and it's so cheap. Yeah, so don't spend money on taxis. You can get around super easy with the Istanbul public transport service. So moving on, depending on your budget, we're looking to head towards Cappadocia, and if you have enough money you could fly to Cappadocia because it's going to save you so much time. I got a bus. It was meant to be like 12 hours, but it ended up taking like 15 hours. It was an absolute nightmare. But if you're on a tight budget, just go the bus, maybe even do like the overnight one, because then you can kind of sleep during the bus overnight. So you're going to want to spend 3 nights in Cappadocia. Cappadocia is just so beautiful. It's a gorgeous little town. It's very different to the rest of Turkey. It's such a unique landscape, and the hot air balloons are just amazing. It's just so beautiful. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce the name of the hostel, but I stayed at Kose, K-O-S-E hostel, and it was fantastic. They've got a pool. It's like a homestay experience. The owners are fantastic. It's a nice garden to chill out. It's just a really, really beautiful spot. You can also see the hot air balloons from the rooftop in the morning, which is such a nice experience. So some of the activities that I recommend are the hot air balloon ride. So you can go on the hot air balloon ride, or you can just view them from a viewpoint. Love Valley is also really incredible. The highest viewpoint, so it's literally called highest viewpoint, and it'll take you up to the highest spot in the town of Cappadocia. It's about, I'm going to say, maybe a 15-minute walk from the heart of town, maybe 20 minutes, and obviously it's a highest viewpoint, so you're going to have to go up some bit of an incline, so just prepare for that. And if you're doing it in the morning, you're going to want to go before the hot air balloons are off, so you're going to need some sort of lights. If you have a headlamp, maybe take that with you. Next up is Gorme National Park. Awesome spot to explore, lots to see, and also the ATV tour. So that's a lot of fun if you want to just zoom around on some ATVs and check out the town of Cappadocia. It's a pretty cool activity. Next on the list is Antalya, and you're going to want to spend 2 nights in this little town. My hostel recommendation is Gold Coast Hostel. I actually didn't even stay at this hostel, but I went there with some friends and I had a great time there. There was an incredible social vibe, and it was better than the other 2 hostels that I stayed at with my time in Antalya, so I recommend Gold Coast. Some activities you may want to do is just wandering around the old town. There's lots to see, lots of shopping to do, loads of restaurants and bars. You also want to check out the Memeli Plage beach. That's quite a nice little spot. You do have to pay to enter that spot though. I always butcher the name of this and I don't actually know how to pronounce this, but the Cara Alioglio Park and the Mediterranean views are fantastic. Like, just take a wander through that park and then head over towards the sea, and it's just beautiful with the mountainscape in the background. It's stunning. Finally, you want to check out Kirk Merdivan and also the boat tour. The Salawater boat tour was like one of the highlights of Turkey. I had the greatest time on this boat tour, and I linked the video that I filmed down below for that one because it was one of my favorite days in Turkey. Next up, you want to make your way to Kaş, and you want to spend 4 nights in this spot. This was hands down my favorite spot in Turkey. I had the greatest time in Kaş, and it's just got this like charm about it like no other. It's just such a beautiful little spot. So my hostel recommendation from Kaş is Sol Blue Hostel. There is like a gorgeous pool, ocean views. They do the best buffet breakfast every morning. They've got a kitchen, clean rooms, clean bathrooms. Staff are incredible. There's not much more you could want. However, it is a little bit more pricey, but you're paying for quality, and there's only one other hostel in the area, so I recommend Sol Bleu. I think it was an incredible spot to hang out for a few days. Some of the activities you want to do in Kaş is check out the old town, maybe do some scuba diving if you've got your license. The Antifolos ancient city is really cool. Licia rock tombs. It's great for nights out, and there's loads of incredible restaurants. There's even a few vegan restaurants around, so that's pretty hard to find in the rest of Turkey, so it's quite a treat of a place. Next up, moving on from Kaş, you'll want to head down to Fethiye for 2 nights. For the most part, I actually haven't heard that there's a lot to do in Fethiye, and I didn't actually visit myself because I spent all my time in Kaş. But there is one thing that you'll need to do that looks insane, and I specifically want to go back to Turkey just for this one activity. So it is called the Butterfly Valley Camp, and you camp on the beach and you stay in this valley. The only way to access it is via boat, so you're like secluded from like the rest of the world on this beautiful beach camping, and then you can add in like a food package, so they feed you breakfast, lunch and dinner. It just looks like paradise. So if you have the chance to experience that, I'd recommend it. I want to go back just for it, and you can do glamping or you can do basic camping, so they've got you covered on all the options, so just do it. It looks insane. And last but not least is Izmir. I would recommend just one night here because it's just another city. There isn't an awful lot to do, but there are a few things that I do recommend. In terms of hostel, I stayed at Izmir Garden Hostel, which was lovely. There was like 6 adorable kittens running around, so that was a bit of a treat. The rooms are nice and comfortable, the staff are incredible, and there's a nice little social space and as well as a kitchen. And it's pretty close to some of the little activities that you might like to do when you're in the town. So check out the Kemeralty Bazaar. There's also an ancient city and a mosque that you might want to check out while you're spending time in Izmir. There's also an airport in Izmir, so you can use that to get to Istanbul and then fly out from Istanbul to wherever it is that you plan to go next. So that's all the information that I have for Turkey. If you're planning a trip there, you're about to have the most amazing time ever. It's such a beautiful country. The people there are so lovely, the food is great, the landscape is just so gorgeous, and each spot's kind of unique to itself. There's a little bit of something different in each place, which I truly loved. I hope you're able to take something away from this video and that it was of some use to you. Hope you found out some information that you can make use of for your trip. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more from me, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.